this. Oops. Okay, so I just wanted to welcome everybody today. A couple of housekeeping things. If you could just put yourselves on mute as the presentation is going on, and then feel free, you can unmute yourself, ask Tara any questions that you might have, or if you feel more comfortable and want to use the text chat, then you can do that and I'll monitor it and then I'll relay any questions over to Tara. So welcome everybody to today's presentation. I'll just introduce Tara here. Bear with me for a second. So Tara Tennant is a financial empowerment coach and business consultant from Cobden, Ontario. She is a passionate financial educator and entrepreneurial advocate. She's a former financial advisor, a former controller in the agribusiness sector, and she's a passionate board member for her local agricultural society. Recently, she has developed a group of workshop series called Financial Empowerment for Women Entrepreneurs, designed specifically for those entrepreneurs who are passionate about their mission and vision, but need a little help on the financial side of things. I welcome Tara. Thank you so much for this presentation today.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori. And I am thrilled to be here speaking with you today. As Lori mentioned, I am absolutely encouraged by the amount of women entrepreneurs in this community. And I think it's outstanding work that you're doing here. And I'm really, really thrilled to be a part of that, even for a few moments this morning. So I hope that you find this presentation enjoyable. I will try and make finances not horribly boring for you. That is my goal for today. So, so without further ado, we'll get into the presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen. And it should work. I'm going to move you over here so you don't have to see yourselves. All right. So I'm going to take you back, first of all, to 2010. So I was a financial advisor back in 2010, working for Edward Jones. I was married and we just had our first child, a little baby girl who was about 6 months old. We owned a home in the suburbs of Toronto, well, a little outside Toronto in Milton, Ontario. We had 2 cars and all the greatest furniture from the Brick, I think. And I had been in the financial services industry at that point for about 10 years. So managing money and financial planning had been a part of my career ever since I graduated university. It was a Friday evening in the summertime, and I was sitting on the couch in the living room looking at my 6-month-old who was peacefully sleeping in her carrier. I had just picked her up from daycare. I was tired. And as I watched her sleeping, I started to cry. You see, I wanted to go home and visit my mom, who lived up here in the Ottawa Valley, which is about 5 hours away. And the sad truth was that I didn't have the money for gas to get home. I had used the last of my overdraft to pay the hydro bill so that it wouldn't get cut off. And my cell phone and landline were in danger of being cut off as well. I felt trapped and alone. My husband was not present. He had gone off on a weekend bender. And I knew that something needed to change. I had to do something. The situation I was in had not happened overnight. It was a slow accumulation of circumstances and bad decisions. And in that moment, as I looked at my daughter, I knew that the only person that was going to get me out of this was me. Fast forward about 3.5 years. I'm sitting on a plane with my now 2 children Ella and Cole. My daughter, who is about 3.5, almost 4, she's looking out the window, fascinated by the view. My son, who's just barely 2, is sleeping peacefully beside me. We are on our way to Kelowna, BC, to meet a friend of mine from my university days. Life has changed a lot in these few years. I had to make a lot of really, really difficult decisions, a lot of which were about money. But they were all my decisions, no one else's. I now had a good job. I was working in accounting, in agribusiness. I had an apartment for me and my 2 kids. I was divorced, and I had a savings account, a credit card that I paid off every month, and I paid for the plane tickets with cash that I had saved for this reason. This vacation was earned, well-deserved, and would turn out to be the moment my future husband would meet his stepchildren for the first time. Hi, my name is Tara, and I am here to talk to you about taking the fear out of finance. I have been up and down the financial landscape, and I'm here today to share some things that I've learned, and I'm hoping that I can inspire you to take your next steps toward a financially confident future. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about why money is stressful. We're going to talk about what we can do about it. And then we're going to talk about some key financial concepts. So I know you're all either in business or planning to get into business. So I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips for managing money in your business. And then as a bonus, we're going to talk about some strategies on how to deal with stress. So first things first, let's talk about what makes us nuts. So I read this article not too long ago about the things that are the ingredients for stress. There are 4. The first one is it's something that is new. So if you've never experienced it before, it's a new thing. New. Our second ingredient is it's unpredictable. So it's something either you've never, so it's, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You had no way of knowing that it was going to happen, and you're not sure how it's going to turn out. So it can be unpredictable. The third ingredient in stress is a threat to ego. So this is a situation where you feel somehow that you don't have the answers and you're feeling less than. The fourth ingredient in the things that make up stress is a sense of control. So it's something you feel like you have no control over. So thinking about those 4 things, novelty, unpredictability, threat to ego, and sense of control, is it any wonder that entrepreneurs are stressed out most of the time, right? We're constantly faced with situations that involve any or all of those elements. So what can we do? I'm going to stop here for a minute. I'm just going to stop sharing here for a minute. And I want to talk about our financial hangups. So just bear with me. I've lost you. I need to show my taskbar and get your lovely faces up again. All right, there we go. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. This is the self-reflection portion of the presentation. So as you think of these answers, if you've got a piece of paper, write them down. If not, you can just think about it. So when we think about those stressors, if I asked you what your biggest hang up around money was, what would it be? What is the thing that is the barrier to your success when it comes to financial management? And what is it stopping you from doing? How does that hang up when you think about that barrier? What emotions come up for you? How does it make you feel? And if you're thinking about the emotions and you're thinking about a feeling like fear, see if you can go a little bit deeper around what the emotion actually is. Because if we can name it, then that's the first step towards overcoming it, right? So is it fear, or is it insecurity or guilt or something else? And again, what is it that it's stopping you from doing? So we'll put that aside for a minute, and we're going to talk about a really, really common hang up around money when it comes to women entrepreneurs. And that is value. So this is a big one for me too. So let's talk about value for a minute. If I offered you this fancy old bill, would you take it? What do you think of this fancy old bill? And feel free to answer in the chat if you'd like. There's the front, there's the back. What do you think this old bill is worth? What's it worth to you? How can I earn it? I like it. Great answer. What if I told you this bill was worth $100? Would you like it? Yeah, it does look antique. Yeah. What if I told you this bill was worth $1,000? Would that change how you felt about it? So I'll tell you, this is an old bill that my current husband's grandfather had. It is not worth very much, but it looks pretty. So we have it here on display. It's from Yugoslavia, actually, in probably the 80s. But I ask you those questions because it's really important to remember that the value that we bestow upon things differs for every single one of us. What I might find valuable and what Lori might find valuable could be two very different things. And in the world that we live in, value can be very, very arbitrary. So it's important to be aware of our own personal filters that we use when determining value. So part of my job is to make sure that the clients that I work with are valuing their services appropriately so that they're earning a decent income, right? Because quite often as women entrepreneurs, we tend to undervalue our services. So part of what we need to work on is figuring out, okay, what's our bottom line, and then working up from there. And our preconceived notions about value play into that a lot. So I would encourage you over the next, few weeks to start paying attention to the money messages around value that you're receiving, either internally, the voices that you hear in the back of your mind. Mine is my grandmother. I can hear her talking to me all the time. Or the messages that we're getting from external sources, right? Value. It's all about value. Okay, I am going to technically share my screen again. There we go. So for me, this was really important shift in my mindset to make. I have spent a lot of my life being around people with a lot of money, being in financial services and working downtown Toronto. And it was very, very interesting to me in the first few months of working in Toronto, because I lived in a sort of sketchy neighborhood downtown. And when I walked to work, I would pass through Moss Park, and there would always be the same homeless person sleeping on the same bench every day. There would be people sometimes approaching me wanting to sell me gold jewelry, you know, a number of rundown housing, and that kind of thing. And just a block later, I would walk into the fancy financial services office building where we serviced, you know, $1 million clients. So it was always fascinating to me how value for one person in the park wanting to sell me something for $5, and then somebody else walking in with their little poodle with a diamond collar, right? It's it's fascinating to me how we can get so used to seeing a certain thing and attribute our own filters to it. So I spent a lot of time thinking that money was just evil, and money was the root of all evil. I had a sign on my wall and everything. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I started to recognize that maybe that was not quite right. And actually, that is a misquote. It is the love of money that is the root of all evil. It's a quote from the Bible. But regardless, it's really important to pay attention to those money messages that we're giving ourselves. So value is something that I work on regularly, particularly being an entrepreneur. So let's talk about how we can overcome these and how we can move forward with intention and with empowerment. So what I recommend are my 3 pillars, which I like to call the essential financial. No, that's too boring. The essential financial framework is just not going to work out for me because you're never going to remember that. How about we call it the 3 keys to ultimate business badassery? Better? This works much better in a room where I can hear people laughing. Here, I just kind of have to cross my fingers and hope that somebody finds me entertaining and not horrible. Okay, so three keys. Let's talk about number 1, learn. The first thing we can do is build a solid foundation of key financial concepts. This is not nearly as overwhelming as you think it should be. But I do want to impart a bit of truth on you. And that is that as a business owner, ultimately, it is you that is responsible for the financial decisions in your business and in your life. It is not your accountant. It's not your bookkeeper. It's not your financial advisor. You are the one that is responsible for making those decisions. And so if you want to set yourself up for success, there are some key things that you really do need to learn about. Fortunately, there are lots of opportunities to learn these things, however it is that you prefer to do your education, whether it's webinars like this one, online courses, I'm sure talking to business coaches, all that kind of stuff, you can learn. There's nothing so complicated that you won't get it, trust me. Second thing is to plan. So got your key financial concepts, now you're going to make a plan. So we can do that and mitigate that unpredictability stressor. Remember our 4 stress ingredients from the beginning? One of those is unpredictability. So we know in business, crazy things can happen. Markets go up and down, customers come and go. There's so many risk factors involved. However, when we have a plan like budget and cash flow, then we can mitigate some of those risk factors. We can plan ahead. I am an adamant planner. I've seen it work in financial services. I've seen it work as a controller in business. And I know that even the planning process itself is really beneficial, even if you don't look at it for another 6 months. I don't recommend that. You should look at it regularly, but if you at least go through the process, it can be really, really beneficial for your business. Recently, I read a study from Scotiabank, and it was called Closing the Gender Gap in Financing for Women in Business. And in this study, they surveyed 2,000 business owners across Canada and discovered that 38% of businesses are operating without a budget. So why is that a big deal? That's a big deal because it's also been proven that if you operate with a budget, you are more financially confident in your business. And that's a big deal because women who are more financially confident in their business are more likely to apply for financing to scale their business. And that's a big deal because women who are applying for financing to scale their business are more likely to be approved for that financing. So that just goes to show that the money is out there. If you want it, it's out there. You just have to find it, and you have to be confident enough in your financials to be willing to go out and ask for it. And that's why we do our planning. Our third key number 3, is support. And since you are here at Faro, you have already figured this out. It is essential to have a supportive network. When we're in business, it can be very lonely. And so it's very important that we have that network of support to celebrate our wins and commiserate when things are going sideways, right? Lots of people have great ideas. We can support each other in many, many, many different ways. I always tell my clients and women that I work with that if you are working with an accountant or a bookkeeper or financial advisor or a lender even, that you are not really comfortable with and that you can be your total authentic self with and ask whatever questions you want without feeling dumb, if you're not that level of comfort, then maybe it's time to look for somebody else to work with, right? It's really important to have that level of support, particularly with accountants and bookkeepers. It's so, so important. All right. Is everybody with me so far? We're good. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, I knew everything that there was. Well, okay, not everything that there was to know about financial planning, but I knew I had a lot of information, right? I had done a lot of financial planning. I had worked with people. I knew about budgeting. I knew all that stuff. And it still didn't stop me from getting into situations that I knew better about. My gut was telling me, I knew intellectually. What I didn't have was the confidence to stand up for myself and the empowerment to make those tough decisions and to say no. Sometimes it was about saying no. So after 10 years of, building my business and working in financial services, I found myself divorced, destitute, and on social assistance for a little while because things had gone so sideways. So that is why I know how important it is to have that support network and the people that you can be honest with and the people that have your back. So let's talk about our key financial concepts. So here is some good meat for you when it comes to managing the finances in your business. These are my top 5 tips for every business owner. These are the musts. So number 1, Know your number. What is the number? What is the amount of money that you need to withdraw from your business on a monthly basis in order to live comfortably? So I'll say that again. What is the number that you need to withdraw from your business on a monthly basis in order to live comfortably? So to find this number, you're going to have to do a little bit of digging, right? Either do a budget, a personal budget, because you're going to want to know what your income level has to be. If you're not comfortable doing a budget or you're just unsure, start with a spending analysis. Look at what you spent in the last month, 2 months, 3 months. Just go through your bank statement. It's all online, and see where your money is going. So once you know how much you need personally, then you can reverse engineer everything else inside of your business. This is where you want to get to. Number 2, don't commingle your money. So what does this mean? This means that if you are in business, and even if you are a solopreneur, you need to have a second bank account that is strictly for your business. It doesn't have to be a business bank account, because those can sometimes tend to come with some added fees and things. So it can be just a personal account, but it should be separate. Why is that? That is because it will help you manage the ins and outs, the income and expenses of your business separate from your personal. Number 1, you'll have a better handle on what's business and what's personal. And second, it's going to help your bookkeeper, accountant at tax time or whenever they're looking at your books, and to make it a lot easier for them. They're not commingling the two. If you have a credit card, if you use a credit card for your business, I highly recommend you have a separate credit card that you only use for business. Again, if you're a solopreneur, you're not incorporated, it doesn't have to be a business card, okay? It can be just a personal card assigned to you as a person, and just only use it for business. Now, you're gonna say to me, oh, Tara, you know, like sometimes I just don't have the card with me, and what do I do? It happened to me yesterday, okay? So I'm not saying that you can never use personal money, but as an example, yesterday I happened to be in town. I needed to go to Staples to get some stuff for the business, and I didn't have my business credit card with me. So I used my personal debit card. But when I got home, I took that receipt and I wrote paid with personal debit on the top, so that when I enter it into my accounting, I'm not confused, I know where it goes, and it all makes sense at the end of the month. Don't commingle the money. Number 3, put aside money to pay your taxes. So this is both your HST, if you're currently charging HST, or your income tax liability. So what does this mean? It means that on top of your business account, your bank account that is strictly for business, I would recommend you get a second account for your business. And this is where once or twice a month, you're going to transfer your HST and whatever you think your income tax responsibilities are going to be at the end of the year. Your accountant can help you figure out what that is, okay? What percentage of your revenue that should be. So why do we do that? Think about a tube of toothpaste. If you have a brand new tube of toothpaste, how much toothpaste are you using when it's brand new? If you're like me, it's probably a decent dollop of toothpaste on your brush. Now, what if you are at the end of that tube of toothpaste and you have not purchased a new one yet? Or maybe you have, but you're just waiting, right? If you're like me, you have, you roll up the end, you squeeze out that last little bit. Some of us who've been, you know, who were kids in the 70s and 80s, we remember those little Tupperware clips that you could put on the end so that you could even squeeze out even more. Same concept is true for your bank account. When you look at your business bank account and you see the balance in there, our little lizard brains want to spend that balance. That's just how we're wired, right? So if we can move our HST responsibilities and our tax responsibilities out of sight, move it to another account, because that money is not yours, it's earmarked for the government. You're going to owe it to them. If you can move it out of the way, then you have a much better sense of what is left and what you have to spend. And you're going to make decisions a little bit differently if that money is out of sight and out of mind. Even if you know, have really great spreadsheets, I still highly recommend moving it aside. And then you don't have to scramble at tax time. It's already there. It's no problem. Number 4, create a new habit. This is one of the concepts that we deal with in the group program, and that is creating a new habit. We call it our money days, and we set aside 2 days a month, usually about 15 days apart, and those are the days when we will do all things money related in the business. So things like paying any bills that are going to be due in the next little while, making sure that the invoicing is all up to date, moving that money aside to pay the HST and taxes, paying yourself. That's what makes it fun. That's the reward for the money day, is those are the days that you're going to pay yourself. And anything else that you have to do, bookkeeping related. I know how much bookkeeping sucks. I know it sucks and it can be overwhelming, and we can procrastinate it because it's one of those things that we have to do for ourselves and we haven't committed it to anyone else. So I get it. Barbara even has shared with me that she's got a group that you can join, and they sit together and they do their books in the evenings. And so I think that's fantastic. If you can find an accountability buddy or somebody who's going to do it with you, just to make sure that it's getting done on a regular basis, this is very, very important. So keep on top of it, and then you won't be so overwhelmed. If we break it down, it's not quite so overwhelming. So create that habit and make that a monthly or bi-monthly occurrence. Manage your receivables. So this is a big one that we talk about a lot. So what is a receivable? First of all, if you sell somebody something, a product or service, and they don't pay for it immediately, it creates what's called a receivable. So that it's in your books as money owed to you. So the most important thing to remember about receivables is that as time goes on, so the longer it takes for you to get paid, the less likely you are to be paid. So the longer you let it go, the more likely it is that you're not going to get paid. So that's why we talk about creating, when we create that new habit and we sit down on those money days, it's really, really important to follow up on any accounts that are overdue. So that's one strategy. On your money day, follow up on clients who haven't paid yet. Don't let it go. Just a friendly reminder. 2, you can issue statements. If you are using any kind of accounting software, you have the ability to generate statements. They can go out by email. It's super easy. Do it. Send out those statements, send out those reminders. 9 times out of 10, the client who hasn't paid you just forgot, or it got lost in their email, or they thought they did and it didn't go through. It's usually pretty generic. For the ones that haven't and are really struggling to pay you, it's a good idea when you're on that phone call and they're saying, oh gosh, I don't have the money, I can't pay right now. Ask them how much they can afford or how much they could pay, and set them up on a payment plan and say, okay, that's fine. Well, pay me $50 a month for the next 4 months or whatever it is until it's paid back. But at least you're getting something and you're getting them to pay you. This works with suppliers too. If you're in a situation where you're in retail and you've got customers who like haven't paid in some time, or if you have a supplier that you need to pay, just set up that payment plan, right? Get something going. Because again, the longer it takes for them to pay, the less likely it is that they will pay. And if you can get them paying something, they're more likely to pay you back. Also, don't forget that you can absolutely charge interest. Even if you're a solopreneur, that's okay. Put it on your invoice. Say that after 30 days or 15 days or whatever it is that you're going to start charging interest, and then do it. Do it. You can always reverse it if you need to. It's a pretty simple calculation in your accounting, and you can reverse it if you have to. But make sure that you're charging interest on those overdue accounts. Don't let those receivables get out of hand. Okay. So we're doing really well on time, so that's good.
Tara,
so let's talk a little bit about
Tara, can I just
some
ask you one
coping
quick
strategies? So these are the ways that we can manage those stressors that keep popping up in our lives because we are entrepreneurs. Be positive. And if I was sitting if I was you and I was sitting listening to this presentation and we've gone through all this, and then I told you to be you told me to be positive, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know about that. But what I mean by this is that it's really important to remember that there is no failure. There is only feedback. If we start beating ourselves up about every little thing that goes wrong, it's going to make it really, really difficult to move forward. So try and look at the silver lining or the lesson to be learned in whatever has gone wrong. It's okay. We're all human. Which brings me to point number 2. Accept yourself and others. Everybody is just doing the best that they can with the resources that they have in that moment. And so again, it's really important for us to try and accept ourselves for who we are. And, you know, we don't have to really be upset when things go sideways, right? Feel the feelings. I'm not saying don't. Feel the feelings, recognize what they are, name them if you can. If you haven't noticed, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. Name them if you can, and then figure out what you need to do to move on. Deal effectively with mistakes. Own up to it. Apologize if you need to. How can you fix it? Don't beat yourself up. There is no failure, only feedback. We're just doing the best that we can, right? Make sure that you're giving yourself some breathing space, especially in these crazy times. My favorite point, deal effectively with success. It is very easy when we are entrepreneurs to have a really, really great month and then assume that this is going to be the new normal. If you receive a whole windfall of revenue beyond what you had expected, I would encourage you to still stick with your plan and don't adjust things to this perceived new normal. Because again, we don't know what's going to happen. And when we have those windfalls, it's really, really essential to kind of sock some of that money away so that if we have a tough month moving forward, then we can use some of that windfall to cover any shortfalls that are coming. Again, this is really, really important when it comes to planning. And if you're doing your cash flow and your budget, noting those months that things will be really, really good and using those good months to cover off some of the weaker months. Another point to make when we're dealing effectively with successes is to ensure that you are celebrating and rewarding yourself. This is one of those tough ones for me too, right? We downplay our successes. Oh, it was nothing. Oh, this old thing, you know? When you get, how many of you, when you get a compliment, do you kind of slough it off? Like, oh, it was nothing. I encourage you, when you're getting a compliment the next time somebody compliments you, the only thing you're allowed to say is thank you. That's it. Thank you. Oh, you look great today. Thank you. That's it. Try that for a week and see what happens. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more you will learn, and the more you'll be able to adjust your plan as you go. And again, the more resilient you're going to become when you can do all of these things. So the goal here is to become financially confident and to make difficult decisions with confidence. This is where we're going to get to. Now we've got another few minutes. So let's go back and look at that big money hang up that you were thinking about at the beginning of this presentation. The thing that really is holding you back from moving forward with confidence when it comes to financials. So imagine that I have a magic wand or pixie dust, and I could go poof and make that hang up just disappear. What would life look like? What could you accomplish if that hang up wasn't there? So as you're imagining that, I want you to make that your goal. This is where you want to get to. So with that goal in mind, what is the next step? Can be little, doesn't have to be big, but what is the next thing that you are going to commit to doing to move forward toward that goal? Schedule it in your calendar. And follow up with me and tell me if you did it. Just one thing. And when you do it, when you accomplish that task, I want you to celebrate that you have done that one thing. Now, in our class, we smile and say, I'm a money maven. So if that's your thing and you want to get down with us, then I highly recommend you try it. It seems very silly. I know I did not want to do it at first, but the point is that when you reward yourself and you even force yourself to smile, it creates an understanding. It creates that pathway in your mind that gives you joy. So if you can, smile and say, I'm a money maven. All right, I am going to stop sharing and open it up for questions. I've lost you again. There we go. I'm going to open it up to the floor for the chat. I was not really watching the chat, so if there are questions in the chat, let me know. Ask me anything. I'm here to help.
Tara, there was one question there. What is a reasonable percent of interest?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh. You hear me now?
Am I the only one who can't hear her? Oh. Why can't I hear you?
No, I'm not sure.
Can you hear me? Maybe she can't hear any of us.
Yeah, Can you hear anybody, Tara?
There, I can hear you now.
Okay,
I
sorry.
hope nobody was talking during that because I just kept going on and on.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay.
There was one question there. What is a reasonable percent of interest to charge?
A reasonable percent? It can be anywhere up to like 3%. So if you have a bookkeeper, you could ask them. But traditionally, most organizations I've worked with, it's usually anywhere between 1.5% to 3% a month. Per month. Yeah, every single month.
Hey, Tara, should you have a second account for the taxes only?
So what I recommend, and I'll tell you, by the way, that this information, part of what I'm recommending to you comes from, oops, wrong book. Just 1 second. It comes from Mike Michalowicz's Profit First, if you've ever heard of this book. So he gets into, I think it's like 5 or 7 different bank accounts. It works similar to the envelope method or the jar method of budgeting. If you're a fan of Gail Vaz Oxlade, very similar idea. It's just for business. So I always recommend for my clients that they have 2 bank accounts. And yes, one is for the HST and taxes, and only the HST and taxes, and the other one is your operating account. So all of your money in and money out on a day-to-day basis. If you want to go further than that, you can look at Mike's book for that. But the 2 is really, really helpful.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
There was another question. When you refer to the group, where the question was, what is the group you refer to?
Financial Empowerment for Women Entrepreneurs. So that's my group program that I offer. We're running one group right now, and I'm looking for another couple of participants to do a second group for the summer. So if anybody's interested in that, you can check out my website, which is workingwithtara.ca/workshops. You can find it there.
Okay, another question is, how did you manage to get yourself out of debt and move forward with your life?
I claimed personal bankruptcy. So what happened was my ex-husband, at the time, we owned a house, we had some assets, and he basically went MIA, and he refused to sell the house. And by the time I got a lawyer, it was too late, and the bank was already calling, and there was absolutely nothing I could do. And so I made the very, very, very difficult decision to claim personal bankruptcy. And with that came letting go of my career, because I had to let my financial advisor license lapse, because they don't let you advise other people if you can't manage yourself. So that was one of the tough decisions that I made. Looking back, maybe if I'd have had a different support system and more people who had more information, I would not have made that decision. But again, I was doing the best that I could with the resources that I had available. I was not in a mentally healthy situation at that point. And so that was the best decision for me and my kids at the time. My ex never had to claim bankruptcy, by the way. I wiped it out for both of us. Didn't know that either at the time. Yeah. And so again, hard work. And I moved home and lived with my mother for about 1.5 years when I had my son. And then I went back to work when my son was 1, and worked for a company here, and I've built back everything from there. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I put the link in the chat for your website there, where the workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie?
I I'm just gonna ask it verbally. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
So I just typed in the chat that I'm ready. I need to start a business. I need to like register it. It might not be related to the money side of things, but when setting up a business, how does that affect like actually taking that step and registering it versus
Just operating.
just operating, one.
Yeah.
And two, if you're just operating, when you're registering, do you need to register a name, or can you just be a numbered business?
So there's kind of two questions here, and other business coaches can correct me if I get anything wrong. But when you're registering, so you're getting a master business license from the province of Ontario, you can just register your own name. And all that really does is it's telling the Ontario government that you're going to operate a business under this name. It has nothing to do with tax or legal ramifications or any of those things, right? Or HST, none of that, right? It just is saying, okay, I'm going to operate as this business. So if you're a solopreneur, the numbered company thing is when you get into having a corporation. So if you wanted to make your business a separate legal entity, that's when you get into registering a corporate tax number. So if your business is just something you're going to operate as a solopreneur, like as an individual, you don't have to do that. You can just register it with Ontario. And a lot of people don't even do that. I would, just so that you have that master business license. It looks like this. I have mine right here. That's fine. And you just get this nice little piece of paper from the Ontario government that says you have this business and this is the address and what you do.
It's Barb, and just a couple of other things. I think there's like $60 to get your master business license. You renew them like every 5 years, but they're important to have if you're going to apply for any kind of funding, even like payroll funding, anything like that. You need a master business number to recognize the fact that you are a business. So it's very important to have. So I would recommend that you at minimum just get that master business license. There's no need to go to that level of incorporation or anything like that when you're just starting out.
Yeah. Okay. Does it have to have? Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Tara.
Yeah.
I have registered actually probably more than a month ago, and I did receive that email of that slip of paper that you just shown, but it doesn't have like a master business number on there.
Nope.
So do I not have a number?
So you don't have, if you're talking about like for HST or a business number?
Yeah, business number,
corporate number.
mostly for like when I'm looking for my suppliers and they're asking for that number. I don't have anything to provide.
Yeah, so they're generally asking for that because of HST. I'm assuming that's why they're asking. So you're not, once you've made $30,000, or if you choose to register ahead of time, you'll get an HST number, and that's with the federal government. So that's a little bit of a different process than this.
Lots of them are asking for it just to prove that I'm an actual business. Like
Right, and there should be a number, like a license number on that master business license.
There is a business name number, but not.
That's what you would want to use. Just that number that they've given you there is all you have to have.
Okay, the business name number.
Yeah. Right. Now, again, what we're talking about, HST is totally different. That's your business number you would get when you register, but that business license number is all you would have to provide to prove that you are a viable business, or that you are a registered business.
Okay.
There you go.
And just to back Barbara up, the business name registration that you're doing for $60 for 5 years, remember it is a business name registration, and that's why it says business name number on the certificate. And to register for payroll or HST, those are all done directly with the government, separate for each account.
This may be a stupid question, but So if you register with the provincial government, your name as a business, you still have to put aside the HST for that?
No, no. So if you're not charging, if you're not registered with HST, so if you haven't passed $30,000 in 4 calendar quarters, then you don't have to register for HST and you don't have to put HST aside. But
So-
that means you can't collect any tax credits either, HST.
Oh, okay.
And sorry, just to interrupt, is that billable 30,000 or is that in net 30,000?
Tell me more. I'm not sure the difference that you're talking about.
I've had this conversation with a few people lately and people are, my understanding is if you are billing $30,000 in a year, you must register for HST.
Yes.
If it's not so much, I'm not making 30,000, so I don't have to. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So if you've billed or invoiced $30,000 and your expenses that you've paid are $35,000, it doesn't matter. You still have to register for HST. They care about the revenue, the income.
And it's, as Barb, again, I would just recommend that if you start to do really well and you think that, so you've run your business for a year or two, you haven't billed $30,000, but in year 3, things are going really well. And the chances of you running over the 30,000 in that year are going to occur. Register right away. So you've got your full year of that. Trying to do it partway through the year creates a little bit more of a headache. So like I said, if you feel at the end of your year that next year is going to be a boom year, that's going to throw you over that 30,000, then register for the beginning of the year.
Yeah. And there's different ways to handle HST. So if you're getting to that point, it might be advisable to, at that point, have an accountant who can help you out at tax time and make sure that you're recording and remitting your HST correctly.
And there are advantages to being an HST registrant in that you are collecting the HST on behalf of the government, but any HST that you pay for your product or your services that you yourself pay in HST, you get that back as an input tax credit. So if you owed in HST that you collected $3,000, but you ended up paying $2,500 in HST for your equipment or your services that you required to do your business, then you would only have to give the government $500. So there is an input tax credit benefit that they're giving you for collecting HST on their behalf.
I have another question.
Yes.
And the HST is submitted every quarter to the government?
It depends on how you're set up.
Okay.
It can be quarterly or annually,
Okay.
depending.
I have
Yeah.
another question.
Mhm,
I wrote a book and I'm dealing with an American publisher.
mhm.
How does that play into the tax situation?
Ask your accountant.
Okay.
I'm not a tax specialist. I'm not an
Oh, okay.
accountant. So that's a good question for an accountant who deals with out of country income.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else
Hi,
have any
Sarah.
other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
I have one. So I'm just setting up my business. I've been doing this work for a few years and I only had one payment last year where I used to work for the university and the services I was doing was also through the university. So it was just easy for them to put me through the payroll. But I'm now going to be, I've created my business framework and anyways, I'll cut to the chase. It's easy go off on different tangents because there's so many things I'm doing at the same time. But I haven't opened my bank account yet. So you mentioned that you can just open another personal account. So
If you're not incorporated. So if you're
Yeah.
incorporated, that's different.
Yeah.
But if you're not incorporated, then yes, you can just open a personal account and use it for business purposes.
and you just have it in your name, or do
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
don't,
so-
so you don't put it in the business name?
No, you can just use your name personally. So what I've done, I can tell you what I do. So my business, I call it TFT Consulting. But I'm just a solopreneur, so I'm receiving any income to me personally. So I have my banking, I work with Northern Credit Union. So I have a second account that's just my personal account, and I've nicknamed it TFT Consulting in my online banking.
So it's easy for you to organize it then? And
Easy.
you can,
Yeah.
okay,
I
okay.
have 3 accounts for my business, but
So there still is a charge for bank accounts. You're just not paying as much as you would.
as much.
before.
So
Yeah.
yes, and banks, the bigger banks, well, even the credit unions are catching on to the fact that people are using this strategy more and more on both the business side and on the personal finance side. And so you're seeing more and more discount bank account packages. So the one I'm using, I think it's only like $5 a month or something, and it's completely virtual. So I can't go into the, like, if I went into the bank and wanted to do something at the bank, then they would charge me for it. But as long as I'm just doing like electronic transfers and virtual stuff, it's really minimal. And then you've got institutions like PC Financial, Tangerine, Simply Financial. They all have options for completely virtual bank accounts that are really inexpensive.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
So if clients want to pay by check, though, you,
That's when it gets difficult.
yeah. So as long as they're wanting to pay virtually, then you're okay.
Then you're okay.
Yeah, for those.
And
kind
even
of
you could,
accounts.
and check with the bank, right? Like, it's worth talking to the banks because it's their job to help you,
Yeah,
right? It's not an inconvenience to them. It's their job. And if they don't like it, go somewhere else. If they don't want to help you,
great. Okay.
that's how I feel about it.
Sorry, just on that point though, sorry, it's
Thank you.
Victoria. I really caution about it just because there are some times, and I know lots of entrepreneurs do this. And when we started exactly like this too, personal accounts. But there are in there like fine print sometimes where it's like, this cannot be used for business purposes.
Yeah.
And so you really do have to be careful. Like, there are legal liability type issues involved in that sometimes. So a lot of people do it. I'm not saying, but just be
Mhm.
aware, right?
Be aware
And
of what you tell them.
yeah, and of course, if you are going to tell them, like, talk to them and say, I'm using it for business, they are automatically going to say you need to have a business account, which is double or triple the cost, right? Usually to
That's
get
why.
that. So,
Mhm.
but please, like, be aware that there are those legalities
Yeah.
around it. So if they find that you're using your personal credit card or whatever, like, there can be that potential.
Yeah. Thank you, Victoria, for making that point. Yeah.
I make a point as well. If they go to the bank to set up a business bank account, the bank is going to ask for their business name registration. So make sure they have that with
Yeah.
them when they go to set it up.
Thank you.
Any other questions that anybody else has?
Well, I just asked about, like, I know in the Paro circles, I'm not in a circle, still looking for one. But when you get to the Paro circle point, there are some lending grants, and I'm not sure on all the specific details right this moment, but wouldn't you just open a bank account with the Paro circle people if you were looking to start out?
This is a question for Lori.
Yeah. Or, sorry, I see Victoria, are you ready to?
So so what you're wanting to use is to use the bank account for the circle, like that has been set up for the circle to help launch your business. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, the way I understood it was each of the women who was in the circle, if they were going to Alterna Bank, or I can't remember the one in the northern area, but you still had to open a bank account with Alterna, and then also the group, as 4 people or 7 people, had to open up a separate account, but you also had to have a business bank account with Alterna. Does anybody have any insight to that?
So the circle account is completely separate. So you would have your own business account operating as your own business, but the circle account is really for the emergency fund. That's really what that account is for, and for the loan to be able to go in. But anything dealing with circles, and Lori, like I've never heard, we've never had that situation, but anything dealing with circles is like circle account. Like that is a circle account for any loans that would flow through it. And that is what's set up with Paro and the CFDC or the Alterna. So if you're like the whole issue of you having your own bank account, like for your business, that's your own, how you want to establish your affairs, that's your own kind of thing.
Thank you for explaining that. I thought you had to have an Alterna bank account to get okay. Thank you.
The Alterna is just, in order to facilitate any loans within our circles, we need to have like a mechanism to do that. So we usually work with the community futures organizations, which is the government agencies that administer loans for small businesses. But in the areas where there is no CFDC, we found another partner who's willing to participate with that. You could have your business account at Alterna, but just for the purposes, and I'm hoping I know I'm correct in this, but please, if I am wrong, Lori, like anything related to Circle is separate. So you don't have to start your business with Alterna. You know, if you're with RBC or Simply or whatever you're doing, that is for your business, and the Circle is separate.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Victoria. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, or if you think of anything, I did put Tara's webpage in the chat there. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you so much, Tara, for being so honest and so informative, because we really appreciate it. And like you and I spoke before, that, you know, these are topics that I think that everybody can benefit from, because, you know, everybody's at different stages of, or has, you know, stories to tell, and really could use it. And sometimes we ignore the, you know, the heavy questions and thoughts and stuff like that. So this really brought a lot of light to it, and we would be happy to have you back. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. And yeah, I also put in the chat there, because there was talk about the circles. The next Circle Up event is next Thursday, the 24th at 4:30. So if you're interested in coming and, you know, joining a circle and going into breakout rooms, talking to other people, please attend. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.